Welcome back to Paul's Tech News. It's February now, and once again it is time to recap what happened in tech this past week. And while I'd like to highlight some positive stories demonstrating even the smallest amount of improvement and progress, that's become increasingly difficult to do in 2026. So the best we can manage is alternative phrasing for the bad news. Choosing a video card will soon be much easier, apparently, as Nvidia is rumored to be focusing the vast majority of their consumer chip output on 8GB and 12GB models, meaning you'll no longer have to face the difficult choice of whether it's worth it to spend thousands of dollars on 16GB plus options. A ton of people in the video game industry in the US now have way more free time on their hands, thanks to being laid off along with roughly 1/3 of their coworkers over the past 2 years, and conveniently, there are a couple of actual PC hardware-related news posts about the size of Zen 6 CCDs, and Nvidia shifting some chip production to Intel fabs that are just enough to distract us from the general enshittification and chaos in the world at large, which is either brought to you by, or being directly enhanced by AI. Also, another 12VH power connector is melted. Tech news.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by the Paul's Hardware store on paulshardware.net, the only official source for Paul's Hardware merchandise, tantalizing t-shirts, brilliant beer sets, high-quality hoodies, and more, all featuring the classic thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers, or the 8-bit thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers who hate curves. New designs are added sporadically and at random, so head over to paulshardware.net and get some of that sweet, sweet merch right now. Or not right now, after you watch the video. Either way. We've discussed Nvidia's consumer GPU plans at length in recent months because there's warranted fear from the PC gaming community that Nvidia would prefer to just not make consumer products at all anymore, so they can devote all their booked fab time with companies like TSMC to producing much more profitable chips for use in AI data centers. The ongoing memory shortage has exacerbated the issue, as now there's a scramble for VRAM as well, a pretty essential component in a fully functional video card, and in January, rumors from the supply chain abounded, claiming there would be 20% cuts to consumer GPU supply and the end of life for GPUs that paired more VRAM with lower prices, like the 5060 Ti 16GB and RTX 5070 Ti 16GB. And despite Nvidia's reassuring two-sentence statement a couple weeks back, we continue to ship all GeForce SKUs. There are now reports from the board channel's forums that 3/4 of the GPU supply from Nvidia in Q1 will be the 3 models they need to use the least amount of VRAM for: the 5060 8GB, 5060 Ti 8GB, and 5070 12GB. Which also just happen to use Blackwell GB205 and GB206 die configurations, which are the smallest in the stack aside from the RTX 5050's GB207. What we don't know is how much of a change this represents. Nvidia has never been known to share production number breakdowns, although last month's PR statement is vague enough that shipping even one RTX 5090, 5080, and 5070 Ti card each would fulfill it. And there's no denying real-world prices, which are up significantly for GPUs whose availability is in question, like the 5070 Ti, which now goes for $900 plus here in the US, or the 5060 Ti 16GB, which is now at least $100 over its MSRP, if not more. On the plus side though, perhaps fewer high-end RTX 50 series cards in the wild will reduce the number of reports of melted power cables, such as this one recently posted by streamer Jessic, showing frothy bubbles and smoke emanating from what appears to be a 12VH power extension cable connected to an MSI RTX 4090 gaming trio. A lot of heat was thrown at Jessic, not by the melting connector, but by commenters claiming that she should have been cutting power to this system rather than filming it, but I think public awareness of things is important, and there's no way this incident would have been shared and reposted as many times as it has without that video evidence of the failure in progress. But yes, if this happens to your GPU and you're more concerned with saving the hardware than internet clout, it's best to power down immediately. Next up, some rumors about actual AMD PC consumer hardware. First on the CPU side, where AMD's next-gen architecture will likely be called Zen 6 and be fabbed on TSMC's N2 process, though none of this has been confirmed directly by AMD. But per leaker HXL, the Zen 6 CCD will increase the core count to 12, up from 8, and the L3 cache to 48 megabytes, up from 32, while only increasing die size to 76 square millimeters, up from 71 with Zen 5 thanks to that process shrink. If true, this means AMD should have no problem dropping one or two of these dies onto complete CPUs that slot into the existing AM5 socket, which should debut as the Ryzen 10,000 series, unless AMD decides to confusingly bastardize the name and add AI, like they did with their mobile CPUs. The new chips are codenamed Olympic Ridge for now, and the launch could come as early as September or October 26 per recent rumors, which might mean we hear about them at Computex in June. If AMD continues as they have with recent launches though, we'll probably see standard Zen 6 CPUs later in 2026, with X3D versions coming in early 2027. A bigger question might be whether there will be any sanely priced consumer DDR5 memory to go along with them by then. On the GPU side for AMD though, there's more of a mixed bag. Again, this is rumor-based, so grain of salt, but many have been disappointed with the RX 9000 series of Radeon GPUs seeming to just end with only a handful of RDNA 4-based cards on the market. Meanwhile, on AMD's APU side, integrated graphics seem to have stalled with RDNA 3.5 architecture, and they never made, nor do they seem to have plans to produce a discrete mobile GPU with RDNA 4. But this is apparently part of their plan, as they're content to use RDNA 3.5 for lower tier parts even through 2028, while premium products, like whatever the next gen version of Strix Halo is, will use RDNA 5, which will hopefully also mean discrete desktop GPUs for the Radeon RX 10,000 series or whatever that ends up being named. Again, if true, this seems to give Intel a window of opportunity to catch up on the integrated graphics side of things with mobile CPUs, which they're already off to a good start with after last week's debut of Panther Lake. And now we come to the time when I realize I'm short on time, which means it's time for Tech Briefs. Speaking of Intel, they've been doing a decent job of not dying off completely after it seemed like they'd do that several times last year, and Nvidia is helping them out yet again by entering into a low-risk partnership to produce chips on their current 18A and upcoming 14A processes. Per Digitimes, Intel would not immediately start pumping out dies for gaming GPUs or anything like that, but would rather produce the I/O die for Feynman-based products, the Nvidia architecture set to succeed Rubin in 2028 or so. They might also use Intel's EMIB, embedded multi-die interconnect bridge packaging, and per this WCCF Tech article, Nvidia is also looking to outsource non-core products to Intel Foundry, and non-core for Nvidia now means gaming GPUs, so Intel making Nvidia GPUs could totally happen in the future. Speaking of gaming, game developers seem to have had a rough time in the past couple years, per a survey conducted at the GDC Festival of Gaming that polled over 2,300 industry professionals. 33% of respondents in the US report having been laid off in the past 2 years, 28% if you look at global figures, and that's a stark reality that many are facing in a world where many employers are seeking to reduce overhead by reducing head count and replacing people with AI as the world grapples with making sense of the new technology without losing its soul. It's likely this statistic also influenced many workers' approach to unionization, which is heavily favored in the same study. 82% of respondents said they're strongly inclined to unionize. I'm guessing the other 18% are heavily invested in AI data center companies. Next up is Newegg, who, full disclosure, I worked for from 2005 to about 2013, but their owner Tom He has been detained by Chinese officials from the Hebei Prefecture Supervisory Commission, an anti-corruption investigatory body, supposedly for personal matters, but the specifics are unknown. Newegg has claimed that it is unrelated to their e-commerce business and will not affect operations, but their stock still took a 17.7% nosedive when the news went public and still has not recovered. Tom is the chairman of Newegg's board of directors, and to my knowledge, never worked in the RMA department sorting out confusing mislabeled returned PC hardware like I did, which clears me of any implication in this matter. Finally, because I've been trying to at least end recent tech newses on a positive note, we have word from Microsoft, as reported by Windows Central, that they have actually heard people's complaints about how much AI garbage has been shunted into the Windows 11 OS, and maybe, just maybe, they're gonna cut back on the Copilot integrations a little. Maybe their stock dip recently has something to do with it. But per the article, pushback has resonated with internal teams. According to people familiar with Microsoft's plans, the company is now reevaluating its AI strategy on Windows 11 and plans changes to streamline or even remove certain AI features where they don't make sense. I'll help you out there, Microsoft. None of them make much sense, whether you're talking about recall or making Windows an agentic OS, or particularly the absurd updates that added Copilot to Notepad and Paint Paint. I'm not giving Microsoft the benefit of the doubt though. For many, Linux is already seeing much broader appeal, and Windows will need to work pretty hard to win back those who have made the switch. My editor Joe recently revived an old laptop with Linux just this past week, and I'm even doing a Linux build very soon, although I'm still in the research phase. Soon though. Soon. But there you have it guys, tech news for the week, and if you liked it, click that like button or leave me a comment down below. While you're down there, all of the articles I talked about today are linked in the video's description if you're interested, and you can check out my store at paulshardware.net for high quality merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, beer sets, and more. Subscribing to my channel is always a good call too. Thanks again everyone, we'll see you next week.